On this exclusive series, we're taking you beneath the surface and sharing advice and lessons learned straight from our leadership. We hope these special episodes help you and your teams better leaders for the dirt world. All right, let's dig in. So for this episode, we're talking about the academy. We're talking about training, and I'm sure everybody knows that, and they've heard you guys say that we're a training company. That's what we wanted to be. But I don't know that everybody knows the story of that. And we've shared that. We did a boot camp with a lot of our leadership team last year, and we talked about the reason that we did the academy and where that came from. And a lot of that was personal for you. Do you mind sharing that story for those that hadn't heard that?
No. So, my upbringing, my parents both worked at a textile company, which was Springs Industries in Lancaster County, South Carolina. And my mother was, she worked on about every position there was to work at that place. But as we were growing up, you always would hear things like, I've got training today, or I've got I'm going to train some people next week, or train some people on the weekend shift and so forth. It was how my mother picked up, extra time because they were a 24-hour-a-day company. But the one thing that I got out of that as I was growing up is like, man, they really invest in training. And it was leadership training. It was skills training, teaching people how to run the different types of machines. And, at that time they were looms and spinning machines and so forth to make the cloth. But, that kind of stuck with me, as I was going through college and then obviously when I started my career working. And then every time we would have issues, and if you go back to you talking about detach, when you have a situation, about 90% of the time, it was a lack of knowledge where someone maybe didn't communicate something to someone, or they just didn't know how to do that particular task or know how to run that particular machine and so forth. And then, as we grew, when we were a smaller company, you didn't see it as much, but as we started to grow over the years, your problems seemed to get bigger. But what we didn't do was our solutions didn't get bigger. We just kept blaming it on the individual. Well, he don't know what he's doing. She don't know what she's doing. And we went for many years about, with that. And then finally, when I think I've shared the story with a lot of folks, that, life wasn't fun anymore for me. And in 2017, we sat down with a group of leaders and we come up with our vision of being the best. And we come up with some goals to achieve that. And one of those goals was training. It was, leadership skills are developed and our skill sets for all of our skill positions are fine-tuned so that we can perfect every position. And that was the goal, to achieve that by 2028. We're at 2024, so we're 4 years away. And I would say that our team development group has done a heck of a job. So in 2017, the team development group and our training program wasn't even developed. The way you used to get trained was you throw them in the seat of a machine. And leadership training was a school of hard knocks. Just do the right thing, and that's how it happened. But that's how it was personal to me. But then it became very personal to our leadership team, and in essence, we put this thing together. All of you here at this table has been a part of it. But not only us, it's the men and women out there in the field that's bought into it. That hey, we're going to, number one, the hardest part with all this is things are going to change. And they're going to continuously change by the minute, and you got to be able to accept that. But then number two, we're going to invest in each of our teammates, because it's kind of like I said earlier. We're selling ourselves. That's the product of what we're doing. So if we can continuously get better and better, more professional, more skilled, more efficient at what we're doing, we're going to be always on top. And when we're on top, it'll put us in position to do any and every project that we want to do.
In typical Brian McManus fashion, when finally decided to dive into that training pool and build the academy, it wasn't just a trailer on the outside of the shop. It was 20,000 square foot building, state-of-the-art academy.
3 simulators, yeah.
3 simulators.
You
talk about being the
place
best.
to train.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to do something. I just made this up, so go along with me if you will. But Grayson, true or false? Training at Hoopaugh only takes place on rain days.
Thoughts?
Explain.
You should be training from 7 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. every day, whether it's, showing somebody, how to properly grease a machine, teach them, sweep out your machine, clean your tracks. If you got a teammate that's learning a new skill set, learning a new machine, supporting him. I mean, it could go on and on about, what we can do day in and day out,
Yep.
wet or dry.
I agree.
In training.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to mention, I've had a lot of people that have taught me things over my career. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it weren't for people, teaching me different things along the way. But one guy comes to mind, and this was really early in my career when I was operating equipment, and I thought that I was a good equipment operator, and I probably was at that time, above average equipment operator. But this guy had been operating equipment for years, and he was one of the best, still to this day, one of the best operators, that I've ever seen. He could run about any machine extremely efficiently, but he, knew I was young, and he was very complimentary of, what I could do and things like that. But he spent a lot of time with me just teaching me a lot of little things along the way that would make me more efficient, or different things ways I could use the machine to accomplish different tasks. And, it just, I've never forgot that. And just, I feel so thankful for what he did and those things that he taught me, because just picking up on those little things, it also, opened my mind up to, hey, well, can I do this? Or is there a better way to do that? Just learning from the little things that he taught me to make me better. So, for me, I'm very thankful to that man for the time and the patience he had with me to teach me those things. And, I hope that I can, do that for somebody else. And I think that, we should all work towards that goal of, what can we teach somebody else? And, I think there's a lot of satisfaction too from us as leaders that, what can we hand down, and what can we, help people with to help them become more successful in their career.
That's a great example. That's a great example. All right, Tim, this one's for you. True or false? Training should only take place at the academy and by our team development group.
No, it should be, everybody should be training, whether it's me or Brian, or, if you're a guy out there, laying pipe, or, installing silt fence. If you see somebody that, you can help them be more efficient and teach them, how to do it better, then, we need to have a teaching attitude and try and help everybody that we can.
That's one of the coolest parts about the development of this whole academy and what Team Development Group has done, is that we've seen people that probably were terrified to be in front of a bunch of people and be talking in front of a group of people. Now they're leading classes.
Yeah.
We'll have a whole classroom, and they're up there leading these classes. I would have never thought that some of these people would have been doing that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
All right, this one's yours, Brian. Training, true or false, training is what gives Hoopaugh our competitive edge.
Absolutely true.
How does it separate us?
Well, number one, don't get me wrong, we have competitors out there that are training, but I think if we continue to raise that bar on what we do each and every day, we're best as standard of our training, it's going to make us more efficient in the field. We're going to do more with less, and it doesn't necessarily mean less people. What that means is less effort. If we learn how to Tim's point, with this operator that really showed you how to run a machine, if you get to the point where you're an excavator operator and you get really good at utilizing that machine the way that machine was meant to be used, and we see that a lot of times where guys, they're bogging the machine down, they're taking too much cut at one time, but yet they think they're doing the right thing, but they're not. Well, if they're not trained on that, they're not going to be able to be as efficient. But if we can be efficient in everything we do, and the only way we're going to get there is not through School of Hard Knocks, through trial and error. Trial and error is great. It used to work, but what if we eliminate that because we've got the experience and the skill sets and the training curriculum here? We can bypass all the errors because we've already done it. That saves money. But the competitive edge is number one is because we're investing in our people, that the employee that it's not here today that may want to come work here, they'll be lined up at the door because we are the best from a recruitment standpoint. And then once they get on the jobs, those individuals are going to stay here for retention. They're going to be here longer because we're taking care of them and we're investing in their ability to get the work done as far as their education and training. And then the task itself, they become really good at it, so the output is in an efficient, safe, productive manner, and we're doing it in less time, so therefore we're spending less money. And when we spend less money, that's less, again, money we spend, so therefore there's more money at the end left over to potentially give back to the team for raises and our buying new equipment and bonuses and things like that. But the bigger piece of that is well, it's not a bigger, I guess it all pulls together. When we do that, our talk about the client experience, they're not going to call anybody else. We may have to bid against people, but they're going to say, you know what? Hoopaugh's going to do this deal.
They're
a great competitive.
Yep.
We're going to continue. Again, we're selling each other. And when we get better and better and better, we're Super Bowl champions, or heavyweight champions, ever how you want to put that. But if we get better and better, we'll continue to create that big gap from our competition, and we'll be in line for every project that people really and truly want the best on.
That's a good point, because you mentioned, the training helps us become more productive, more efficient out there on the job sites, which creates savings, which goes to profit. But not only are you creating savings, you can actually charge more.
Absolutely.
The client will pay more if you are the best at what you do and you know how to solve problems and you're trained to deal with the unknowns out there on the job site.
Well, the other piece behind it too, where it benefits, is this is Jocko's term: discipline equals freedom. If we're disciplined about truly becoming the best training company, and that output is hitting each of the individual and they're continuing to get better and better at what they do, you have so much more freedom on a project. You don't have one man screaming at another man to get something done because they're all trained, they're working in sync, and things are just flowing, they're efficient. And then guess what happens? They go home happy. They enjoy their place of work. They can go home and tell their kids, hey, I'm okay with you coming to work for us, things like that. So, I mean, it's a really, if you think about it, there's a lot associated with the training piece. It's not just the task, it's who we are as a company.
Yeah. Grayson, this is probably for you. So I know I was this way early on in my career as you're starting to become a leader and you've got people that are depending on you. I went through a phase where it was harder for me to take the time to teach than it was for me just to go ahead and do it. Like I would get aggravated because it was slowing me down. So what do you say to that team member out there that says, look, y'all don't pay me to teach. You pay me to do a job. You pay me to go out there and get the job done. I don't have time to sit here and teach somebody.
And I was guilty of that early on in my career too. I would, I guess, classify myself as a doer as opposed to a teacher. If somebody couldn't get it, I'd jump in and just do it. But I found over time as the company continued to grow, I realized that if I didn't stop doing and take the time to start teaching, I was going to be doing 7 days a week. And, just because it wasn't working. So that was probably 4 to 5 years into my career. And I really took a step back and said, you know what, I need to be teaching somebody else how to do this right. So I'm not continually, quote unquote, fixing or doing for them. And I think once I did that, it helped me in my level of leadership. I mean, it gave me some freedom. It gave me some time to work on other things to help coach, teach, lead versus, back cleanup and do for others.
Well, and it probably gave you something else, probably gave you some joy, knowing that you've helped somebody.
Yeah.
Tim talked about that earlier, and maybe we close it out with that, Tim. If you talk about what it does for you, because that man that took time to teach that probably gave him more joy than the satisfaction of getting the job done.
Right. I'm sure it did. He was a very patient guy, and was very open to share his experience and his knowledge that he had gained over the years. And I think it meant a lot to him to be able to teach me, and it meant a lot to me to be able to be taught, and for him to take the time to do that with me. So I think the whole concept, like Grayson mentioned, about it making you more efficient by teaching others is applicable across the board at this company. It doesn't matter if you're running the business or you're running a job or a certain piece of machinery. If you can teach somebody else how to be more effective with their machine, it may make your job more efficient and make you more successful at what you're doing. So I think we have to apply that, but no matter what our role is in the company, that we're trying to teach others how to be the best.
And there's joy and satisfaction in that. I remember there was a guy at Martin Marietta that had been there for 40 years, and he was retiring. And I had a chance to talk to him there at his retirement party. And I was just asking him, I said, what's the thing that you want to leave me with? Because I was just starting out in my career. He said, Brandon, I will tell you, he said, at the end of the day, when your day comes and you retire, he said, nobody's going to remember how much money you made the company. Nobody's going to remember that job you sold. They're not going to remember it. They're going to remember you for the people that you helped, the people that you developed, the people that you allowed the opportunity to go to that next level. Yeah. And that's always stuck with me. And it's true. Nobody's going to remember that job. I can't even remember the jobs already from last year, but they're going to remember what you did for them, just like you did for this guy.
Well, and one more thing, and we've got some other topics to talk about, but also remember that teaching. You always hear, "Well, I told them so," and teaching's not just a one-time deal. Look at your kids. Look at how many times you tell your kids or you give that advice. And not that I'm saying that everybody here is kids. That's not it. We're all humans. You don't give up when you're teaching. I mean, you got to find. If you tell them, okay, to do it this way, and they don't do it that way, well, that doesn't mean you give up on them and say, oh, that individual doesn't listen. You have to continue to try to influence those people and to be there for them. And, it isn't just telling. I mean, it's seeing it through.
And you got to figure out how they learn.
And how they learn.
How they learn.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody. That's
their learned language,
Yep.
I mean, it is. It's different for everybody. I mean, you hear that topic or that saying your love language, but I mean, it applies to your learn language too. I mean, people learn and adapt in different forms and fashions.
Absolutely. And one more, somewhat of advice for the team in the field, and this used to happen to me all the time. I'd hit a job site and I'm like, Katie, bar the door. I mean, I'm wide open out there, but you'd have people like, how can I help? How can I help you? And I would never stop and say, well, let me show you, how to do this. But be that person that's asking, because sometimes I think in this day's world that someone may feel like I don't have anybody that I can turn to that wants to learn. Now, we need to have, our leadership should have mindset that everybody wants to learn. But the fact of the matter is some folks will just sit there and let you do it. And if you're one of those individuals that don't speak up much and don't talk, but you really want to learn more, please speak up. Say something, because a lot of times in the heat of the battle, what you've shown to date, sometimes folks think, well, he's not ready, he or she's not ready for me to show them that. That's the wrong mindset to have too. But if you'll be that, talk about cover and move, and from both ends, speak up and say, hey, how can I help you? I can tell Mr. Supervisor that this is creating havoc on you today. You're having to run all over the place. How can I talk about some decentralized command and things like that? How can I help run point on something for you so that you can be over there where it's the highest priority, and I'll stay down here and take care of this task for you? Ask those questions, and we've got a team here that will fulfill that knowledge. But you got to step up. Sometimes you got to step up. Everybody's not mind readers to know that you're ready.
Yeah, very good.
I think be vocal about wanting to learn, and then be vocal about being willing to teach. I mean, I think if you're in a leadership position, do the same thing. I mean, speak up and say, I'm willing to teach. Yep. Who wants to learn what?
Because a lot of times when we're sitting down with employees on exit interviews, one of the topics comes up. Well, I don't feel like I was taught enough. I don't feel like you guys invested in me. This was obviously prior, but we still hear it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, so it happens with 700 something people. Everybody's not. That's what these videos are for today. Is hopefully everybody walks away with a new tool in their tool belt. But they'll tell you, they'll say, well, I wanted to do this, but the individual never really would show me. Now, again, there is a time and a place, but you have to, if you can't show someone something, you also got to explain to them the what and the why behind it at this time. But never forget that if you say you're going to do it and you're going to help them, make sure you do what you say you're going to do.
Because they're not going to forget.
They're not going to forget it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's great stuff. So that's now when you hear Hoopaugh is a training company, you understand the genesis of it. You understand what that means and what the expectation is. It's that we're all teaching every day. Yeah. And it's not just in this building. It's not just from a handful of people within the team development group. Every one of us are responsible for doing that.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep leading with purpose and passion. If you liked listening to the Give Us a Dirt podcast, we want you to hit the like button and subscribe for more great content.